Welcome to PHP Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 216.
Yeah. It's crazy because it just seemed like yesterday that we were at 200 and we're already 16 episodes past it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we did discuss this when we recorded the last podcast, but I think we should start with the last podcast that this is season 3 now.
Yeah. As of last episode,
yes.
We are now in season 3.
Oh, how do we decide seasons?
Well, I think when we got to like 100 episodes or the first year, I think that's what it was. After our very first year, we called that a season. And then I don't know.
So we have like this huge swath of season 2.
Season 2 is it's our epic
season.
It's our epic season. It is our monumental season.
There you go. So all right. So we are in infamy. Season 3.
Yeah.
And Q4 just happened. And so I thought I'd title this theme episode, It's Q1. Now what? Is that okay? Are you okay with that title? You're going to change it, aren't you?
Probably.
All right. But that's the thing. You know, we usually would do like a level up review or we do an interview. But I thought for this episode, being that, you know, it's going to be within the single digit days of January, it'd be a good time to talk about now what, and then we'll get back to the normal swing of things because there's a lot of info that we share now that it's a lot easier to apply now than it would be a month from now, right? And so we'll do our recap Q4 episode in January, talk about, you know, what did we learn and so on. But I thought it'd be a good time to start fresh and go, hey, here's what we're doing now that it's Q1 and, you know, things have kind of slowed down. So I thought I'd break this up into 3 parts. I thought I'd talk about how to organize, what you should learn, and how should you level up in Q1, right? So have you been organizing?
Yeah. If you look at my inventory room right now, it's not extremely organized, but I spent some time towards the end of last year kind of getting things set up, going through and getting things a little bit better. But I know a big organization is going to come as I shift to a new location sometime in the future. I don't know exactly when, but probably within the next month or two. So I'm kind of holding back on some of that organization until then, but I am expecting to have a big inventory organization change and hopefully becoming more efficient, effective as we do that, because we've talked many times in the past, like when you first start out, you're not a lot of times expecting to scale big. And so it's easy to have, you know, well, one tote, half of the tote shoes and the other half of the tote is clothes or whatever it is. But then as you end up expanding, it gets more difficult. And then you have to reorganize. Then you got to go back through listings and do custom SKUs. And so we're hoping that as we organize into a new space that we can be more efficient and more effective in our reselling.
Good. So what I thought, there's 3 places probably that you should organize it. And again, when I say this, I'm not saying this as a guru. I'm saying this as, this is what I'm doing, right? And I'm doing this because I think it's valuable and it's important. So the first thing is bookkeeping, right? Bookkeeping. I hate bookkeeping. You like bookkeeping, don't you?
I don't like bookkeeping, but I know that it's one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah. I mean, there is so much money that you can, I say gain. Some people say that's the wrong word, Orlando. You shouldn't use the word lose. But when it comes to tax time, if your bookkeeping isn't where it needs to be, you're going to be paying a lot in taxes.
Yeah. I mean, taxes is one big reason to have your bookkeeping in order, obviously, and legally. But
legally, just throw it out there. Legally.
In addition to that, though, and I know you're not really a huge fan of the like keeping track of exact metrics in every like category and all of those things and each item writing down and putting it in a spreadsheet and having a cell for what the item name is and then how much you paid for it, what date it sold and all of that information. But if you do that, and it does take time, but what you can really do is, and we know this because in our current day, the new currency, obviously it's always money, but is information. Right?
I thought you were going to say Bitcoin or something.
All of these companies that are the most powerful companies in the world, Google, Amazon, what they're really doing is they're capitalizing on information. They're putting all of the massive amounts of data that they have on customers, their buying habits, what types of customers buy what things, what times of the day is best to do certain types of advertisement. The more information you have, the better. And I think the same is true for your own business. If you can keep track of and really not just have a hunch like, yeah, I feel like I sell more shoes at, this time of year, these types of shoes. But if you can actually have the metrics and say, these types of shoes sell for this type of money during this time of the year, and you have the data in front of you, you can know where you're maybe leaking money, right? I'm losing money here. I'm paying too much. I'm thinking I'm making X amount, but by the time I do shipping and fees, I'm actually only making, 30% profit on this type of inventory, but I'm making 60% profit on this other type of inventory. With that information, you can adjust how you're doing your business. So I say now is the time to do that. At the beginning of the year, again, it's a fresh start, part of it for tax reasons, right? But if you can have a more effective system in place for keeping track of your inventory, how much you're buying inventory for, when you're selling it, what you're selling it for, what the cost was, that information becomes a powerful tool in your hands as you go through the years.
Agreed. And there's a lot of practical tools that can help you do that, right? There's a lot of spreadsheets, right? There's other resellers out there that have spreadsheets that can help you track that information, right? So, you can go out there and you can find them, but, find a way to be able to track those things. Like for me, like you said, I hate spreadsheets. I can't even tell you, despise. I just don't like.
You just need to take a master class or something on spreadsheets, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, and I did take an Excel course back in the day and all that, but it's not that I don't like the info it gives me. I just don't like the work that it takes to keep it up, right? So. But there are some practical tools. I'm still a big fan of GoDaddy bookkeeping. I use GoDaddy all the time. I started from day one. So I just had a nice Harley haul that I picked up. And right away, it's easy. I just take the picture of all the stuff I sourced. I talk about how much in cash I paid for it, put it under cost of goods sold, and you save, and it's in my bookkeeping, right? I don't have to worry about it again. Because what I've had to do in years past is I've had to go to my Instagram stories and look at what did I source that day, right? How much did I spend? But this year, I'm starting off strong right away. Mile IQ, right? Tracking my mileage. So I've had to do a lot of backtracking before, but right now, early days of January, very easy to track your mileage. There is so much money in mileage. I don't know if this year it's 58 cents per mile that the government will give you back, something to that effect. But man, if you're reselling, if you're just going to the post office, even if it's a side hustle, going to the post office is a deduction, right? Going to Costco to get supplies, going to, if you're, needing to go do a local deal, that can be deducted. Again, we're not giving tax advice. We're not professionals, but these are pretty simple things to do, right? So find those bookkeeping tools and get started right away, because it's very hard, when it gets to March or April, like you just did all your taxes, right? Let's say you waited till April 15 and you just do your taxes and have experienced this. And then after your taxes, you're like, oh, I need to get on top of this. So you're all motivated in April, but by April, it's really hard to start backtracking. And it's really hard after a Q4 to go, I wonder what I did in January and February and March. So I do a lot of that though. I'm not perfect. Like this next month, I'm going to be doing a lot of tracking of, what I bought, what I sold, because, all that time that I spend doing that, I see it as dollars and cents I'm gaining back from the government. And so I strongly encourage you, if you can start now with the bookkeeping, like right now, right? It's funny. I was sharing in the last podcast how I'm teaching my son how to resell, and my son goes, do I need to keep receipts? And he's actually been keeping receipts. Why? Because he sees his dad keep receipts. Now, you don't have to literally keep receipts. You can just scan them and hold on to them. And no one ever is going to look at them unless you get audited, but you have to track your expenses, right? So GoDaddy Bookkeeping, anytime I use my card, it tracks it when I spent it. And if I spend this money at a certain store, it's cost of goods sold, it'll automatically filter it out. And I don't even have to think twice about it. So start early with the bookkeeping. Supplies. How are your supplies after Q4?
Yeah, obviously started running low on certain types of boxes and certain, things that we use for packing, bubble, that kind of thing. So obviously the thing we talked about last episode with the eBay coupon came in handy. Start building up those supplies again. And it's a front heavy thing, but it's nice having your supplies organized to make sure you have what you need when you need it. So you're not in the middle of packing something and realizing I need to go buy, some paper, or I need to buy some bubble wrap. So yeah, just having stuff laid out and ready to go. And I think the beginning of the year, obviously you should do it more often than just the beginning of the year. I feel like I'm saying obviously a lot. What I'm saying is very obvious, I guess.
There's a lot of words we say a lot.
So the beginning of the year is a great time to recalibrate, refocus, but this is something you should be doing depending on the velocity of sales that you have, be doing frequently. The end of maybe every 2 weeks, maybe it's every month, maybe it's every quarter, but going through and saying, okay, do I need to purchase more tape? Do I need to purchase more bubble? And then you can get on a nice routine where you have enough to get you through that next period, whether it's every couple weeks, every couple months, so that you have the inventory that you have, or the supplies ready to go, and organize it. And a part of that we're talking is the organization is just figuring out how to be more efficient with your time. Do I have the tape close at hand to where I'm doing the boxes, or am I keeping things separated? Do I need to readjust my space? And sometimes it's a matter of just moving one table, towards this wall and moving another table over here. Whatever you need to do in order to make your system go as fast as possible. We've talked to many people on interviews where that's what they've talked about doing, timing themselves or making sure that they're able to get things done as quickly as possible, having stuff set up. And living in a fifth wheel makes it a little more challenging, especially if we do what we're planning on doing, which is getting a big shed put out there. The shed that we want to get isn't quite big enough to also be our shipping section. So we either need to have a second shed or have something that we pull out once a day to get set up for that. And so trying to organize that is something you need to put some thought in. But the more front loading of the planning you do ahead of time, the more time you're going to save as the year goes on. Agreed.
And what I wanted to say too is that, the first reason you should be looking at that is because there's a new eBay shipping supply coupon. So if you have a basic store and above on eBay, take advantage of that right away. The second reason is I think Q4 is a good measure of how ready are you with shipping supplies. Because it's crazy, right? If you really went in during Q4, like there's a ton of new shipping supplies that I thought, I'm going to pick this up because, I was stuck at certain points. I had bought a certain item from Merchant Fulfilled. I didn't know how to ship it. I ended up losing, 50 cents per item because I used this box. Then I found out about this other box and I'm like, I wonder how this could apply to other items, right? Or different envelopes or whatever it is. It's a great time to reflect back on the craziness of Q4 and recognize how you can make things better. One thing I learned during Q4 was that even though I'm organized with my shipping supplies, I can do better. I ended up having to constantly pick up flat rate envelopes from the post office because I didn't want to get them shipped because I didn't think they'd get to me on time. But then when I was reorganizing my shipping supplies, I noticed I had about 100. But I didn't know because things got crazy. And instead of staying organized, I just kind of tossed things everywhere. And next thing I know, I couldn't find those envelopes. So it's a great time to evaluate and go, okay, from this point forward, what did I learn about shipping during Q4 that I can apply now? And what supplies can I pick up? And you had talked about this next item I want to talk about is inventory, right? It's a great time to organize inventory because things are a little slower. Sales have kind of picked up because of the stimulus checks. I don't know if the stimulus checks has something to do with it, but I do sell a lot on eBay in January still. But are you still finding time? I mean, are you finding yourself losing time looking for items? Have you lost anything lately?
No, we typically don't lose things.
You're like, I'm super organized.
I wouldn't say, yeah, we're relatively organized. Most of our bins have labels on them. Most of our items have custom SKUs. There's some things that don't fit in bins. And when I go through and I move stuff to reorganize, or if we get new inventory and I have to make space on a shelf, I might move some things. And then my wife comes to do shipping one day, and if I didn't let her know where I moved things to, I might get a text throughout the day that says like, hey, where did you move those DVDs to, or whatever it is. And then I just have to tell her, oh, it's on shelf 7 or whatever, because I know, but if I didn't already tell her. So we don't typically lose things. There was 1 or 2 items that we got when we very first started reselling 3 years ago now. And those items are the ones where it's like, scratch your head a little bit, like, what box was that in? We've had a move since we bought those items. I'm not 100% sure. So, but for the most part, we don't really lose items.
Okay, good. So I don't lose items. but I do have to do a little bit of a search every once in a while. Right. But, there's a post, Cincinnati Picker, which I'm hoping we can get him here on the podcast for an interview someday soon. He's a big time seller, sells a lot of stuff, and he had a bunch of totes, and it kind of surprised me because he had all these totes, and he said, I decided to reorganize my inventory from this day forward, and we ended up using those banker boxes, which I thought that was interesting. Like I looked at that and I go, huh, and he mentioned on his post, it was all about, it allows them to find things easier and pull orders faster. Right. And I agree. Like totes can be cumbersome, right? The way I have it set up, I have my totes stacked up 5 high and, having to like lift them up. And, luckily I'm not, at a stage where I can't do that anymore. But, sometimes it's work and it takes time to, pull that down, find the item, put it back up, put multiple totes back up. And that's because I don't have shelves because I'm trying to be more efficient with my space, right? If I had shelving, I could maybe go 3 high only. I couldn't go 5 high or 4 high or whatever it is. So this is a good time to consider how can you make things faster, right? So then, you already have the system in place and you still have time to do this in the summer, but it's nice when you're doing this all year round. And by the time Q4 hits, it's an afterthought. Like you don't even have to think twice about how are you going to pull orders. You already have everything in place. And, now is the time definitely to source and learn things. That's kind of leads us to our next section here soon, but definitely figure out not only what is the best way to store things, but what is the best way to pull items so you're spending your time efficiently when things sell. So, all right. Now this next one, this is one that I have to apply myself to, but it's taking the time to learn, right? Which takes time, but now you have the time, right? Hopefully things have slowed down to a pace that you can actually spend maybe an hour or two, maybe a few hours a week to learn new things. And the first one is another platform. So I've had a lot of people message me and say, hey, Orlando, what's been great this year was I learned how to use Poshmark. I learned how to use Mercari. I actually started doing Amazon and it's been a game changer. And so, maybe you saw a lot of people making tons of sales on Amazon and maybe it's time now it's Q1. Actually, Q1 is a great time to get ungated on items. There's a lot of auto ungating that happens. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, you can get ungated on stuff. So you just type up a brand name, you might be gated, you request approval, and you may get auto approved. And if you're on social media, there's sometimes people post and say, hey, I just found out that I can get auto ungated in these categories. So maybe it's that time to jump into Amazon. Maybe it's that time to go, hey, I sell a lot of things on eBay, but I learned that maybe some things go for more on Poshmark and maybe you list it on Poshmark, right? Cross-posting is a great tool that you can use because some, platforms sell things better. Maybe Depop, maybe Mercari, maybe, one that you haven't, used very much like StockX or Go. I definitely think it's a time to apply yourself because then during Q4, it's definitely a tool that you'll be able to use and it'll be really easy because you already took the time during Q1 to understand that platform.
That's good. Yeah.
So are you going to try to apply any new platforms?
Platform, technically it's not necessarily a platform, but it's a new, for me, method of selling. I think as we move into 2021, I've got some plans to try, like, it's hard to explain. So I don't want to give away exactly, but I want to try more local sales at events. So whether it's swap meets or farmers markets or those type of things. So I want to learn how to do that. And that's going to cut into, because a lot of times those are on the weekends. So it's not going to be an every weekend thing, but okay, like once a month, am I going to set up a booth somewhere and try and sell inventory that way? What does it look like selling locally like that, and give it a try? So it's kind of a new platform because it's a new. No,
that's a new platform. Yeah. I think that's great. I've considered. We've talked about it too, where maybe once a month, setting up a booth somewhere and just trying to sell off a bunch of stuff that we've held on for a while, right? I mean that could be one thing. So learning, right? Maybe you've never gone to a flea market or a swap meet. Are those the same thing? It's just different.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I have guess it would be an uncle-in-law that I don't really talk to tons, but I talked to him when I went to Texas this last time, and he does antique stores. And so he's got booths at a couple of antique stores, and once every few weeks he restocks it up and relabels stuff. And so even that is kind of like, is that another niche that I should maybe be looking into?
I actually looked into that 2 years ago. I was going to do that in San Diego, and then I think it was cost prohibitive at the moment, but I haven't looked back since. So maybe it's worth it. That's again. So there's a lot of resellers that do great with antique booths, and it doesn't have to be antique stuff in that booth. Right? Am I right about that?
I honestly have no idea. Probably dependent on the place that you go to. But,
but I mean, that's another great revenue, especially if you have larger items. It's a great place to sell it. I think Bonafide Hustler, I remember watching him on YouTube. He can use that antique booth all the time. He makes great money. Now, he's in Austin, Texas. Definitely different vibe. It all depends on where you're located to see if it works. But learning a new platform, whether it be online or whether it be on ground, definitely a good thing to do, right? All right, this one was probably the biggest game changer for me in 2020. And I gotta shout out Craigslist Hunter, because this is one of the tips he gave us in his interview in 2019. Right? He said, if you could learn 5 or 6 niches or niches, whatever you want to call it, like you can really excel in reselling. And I find that to be true, right? You found that to be true in 2020, right? Do you have any examples you want to share?
No, because I don't want to give any of mine away. Right. But yeah, so part of what he mentioned too,
I hear you,
is I don't remember the exact number he gave, but it's like every few months learn a new one, right? To kind of expand a little bit more. And so what I think I need to do is I actually found a few over the last year or two that I've done well in, but I don't feel like I've mastered. Okay. And so I want to spend 2020 or 2021 mastering a few of these niches that I kind of dabbled in. And then as I start to gain more mastery of this specific niche, and I know the items better, and I don't have to spend as much time researching, and I know how to source them a little easier, then, all right, now I'll add a new one. But I feel like I'm at a place where it's easy to add another one on, but I'm only going surface level on all of them, and I'm not really tapping into where I should be.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to just one or two, right? Because, I think the more you know about a certain type of item, the better you'll be at it, whether it be sourcing, pricing, whatever it is. And, example has been buckles. Buckles was something that I kind of had a little bit of knowledge about. I knew that they sold. I knew you can buy them cheap and sell them for a lot. But, due to the pandemic, I really took the time to learn what kind of buckles I should source and, where to find them and the best way to get them listed or buy them and so on. And I make a lot of money on buckles now, right? It's one of my bread and butters. And so bread and butter items. Can you say bread and butters?
Breads and butters.
Breads and butters, like buttons.
Buttons.
Anyway, so, definitely trying to learn a new niche. I don't know what that's going to be for me this year. There's a part of me that feels like I need to know sports cards, but I'm not, it's weird. I'm not interested in the sports card market. And I know I'm losing a lot of money. But at the same time, I want to be passionate about what I'm learning. So
again, that's one of those things where if you're already a huge sports fan and you follow all of that stuff, it's easier to get into. Whereas for me, if I were to get into sports card, I'd have to figure out, all right, what are the teams that play basketball? I don't even know the names of most of the teams. All right, who are the players? Who are the coach? Like when you have to do that much research, now if you're passionate about it, it's worth it. But if you don't already have a basic understanding or interest there, it's going to be really hard to jump into.
That's a good point. So find what you're passionate about and then find a niche that fits with that passion. And I think you'll be in a good place. But I strongly encourage that. Like there's a couple that I'm working on right now. I'm trying to learn more and more. And it's just going to expand because part of it is diversifying what you're selling allows you to make more money. So for example, I know Hawaiian shirts really well. Not like expertise well, but I know most general resellers. But man, that market is down. It is. I mean, I used to talk about Rain Spooner shirt selling all the time and Kahala and there's other brands like Iolana and all these different brands that used to sell really well. And I sell maybe 1 or 2 a month now. Right. The market has died. But what's helped me is that I have other niches that I know that I sell in And so that was 25% of my sales, now it's maybe 5%, if even that. But I have other things that have taken that place. So that's why it's very important to learn new fields in reselling.
Yeah. And it kind of goes to, this is slightly off topic, but I think it kind of connects, is even ways that you can reduce costs in just your day-to-day life, right? That's kind of like that learning process, and that time of learning is how can I change my eating habits? How can I change my shopping habits? How can I change? Because there's two different ways that you can increase wealth. One of them is to increase your revenue. The other one is to decrease your spending, right? So if you can find ways to save money in your day-to-day life, maybe save money in your business, save money in your day-to-day life, it's going to help you reach those goals. If you have that target of, I want to pay off $30,000 in debt, or whatever your target is, you can either increase how much you're selling on eBay or Mercari or Poshmark, or you can also find ways to save money in your day-to-day life. And by learning the best ways to combine both of those, you are going to reach that goal faster. And so for us, one thing that we've been kind of tossing around, we're on quite a bit of land. Most of the land it's a little challenging because it's not like flat land. So it's hard to do like crops or anything like that. But we want to do some kind of a homesteading a little bit where we're at, in order to save money on grocery, right? So if we are spending less on food, that's going to be more money in our pocket that we can use for paying off debt or buying more inventory. So that's going to be a huge learning process in our life, but just finding ways you can do that. Any way you can improve the knowledge you have. Knowledge turns into power, turns into money. So learn as much as you can.
That's good. Another one I was going to say, sourcing strategies, learning how to source. And I've shared this, and this is something I've been talking about for a long time. I mean, we even had an episode that said thrift stores no more, or something like that. Like, we're done. But the market's changing, right? I will say, thrift stores are pretty difficult to source, at least in our area. Okay. Local deals have been really great. And so Mike and I have learned to adapt, and we do a lot of local deals where we pick up a good amount of inventory. All right. But maybe this is the time, if you're selling on Amazon and you're kind of done with the retail arbitrage game, you maybe look into wholesale. How do you do wholesaling? Right. Or even for eBay, you could do wholesaling, or finding replenishables, right? How do you get into a replenishable game? Like, finding ways to source the items that you're interested in selling. Like, for me, I'm very big on, I like selling vintage gear. So I'm trying to find ways to get those in bulk. And maybe, so usually I have to go through a middle person, right? Usually I have to go through a vintage warehouse, or I have to go through, regular thrift store, or, through a local deal. I'm trying to find ways that I can get a lot faster, and it's cheaper if I can go directly to that source. And so try to find ways to source things better, because, as things change, and who knows what 2021 holds, the popularity of thrifting isn't going away. It's actually getting more and more. I actually was at a thrift store the other day, and I don't know. Basically, I would say, I'm just throwing around a number, 90% of the people there weren't resellers, and they had a lot of money. Right? Like, I could tell by the cars that they drove into the lot with. I could tell by what they were wearing. And they were just trying to buy stuff because it's cool to wear thrifted items.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot more people are becoming kind of, I guess, aware, conscious of their impact in, consumerism and the culture and the effects that has on maybe the environment and all of those things. And so there's it really does come down to popularity, right? Like, it is popular, it's trendy right now, and that doesn't mean it's a bad thing, right? It might be very good for our environment if people are upcycling, right? So, or recycling. And so, recognizing though that does have an impact on reselling in the positive way of people are going to be buying used things off eBay, in the negative way of it's going to be more difficult to source through the traditional sourcing methods, because now, whereas the store that should not be named, primary customers would have been people who needed items cheap because that's all they could afford, and resellers who can, buy the more expensive stuff, to now more and more of their clientele is going to be a more affluent community who's just trying to, hey, I don't want to go buy new clothes. Yeah. I want to either, buy the cool 90s old vintage stuff, or I want to say, hey, I'm not going and spending a ton of new money on new stuff, but I'm upcycling these old clothes or items, and it makes me feel better about myself.
I mean, all you have to do is if you go on TikTok and you scroll. I mean, I see all these individuals wearing Harley stuff and they never ride Harley. They will never ride a Harley, right? But it's now the in thing, right? And so for me, I got to find different ways to source Harley. Now, a real practical tool, if you have an eBay store, we go to a research tab. That's where therapy is. And we talked about this before. On the left side, there's this thing called sourcing guidance. I shared this before, but there you can take a look at what items sell at certain times of the year and what the average price is, what the average shipping is. But I think it's a great tool if you're a new reseller and you're trying to say, okay, what are some things I should be picking up? What should I look at? So check out the sourcing guidance part of the eBay site. You have to go to the research tab on Seller Central, and then on the left side it says sourcing guidance. And I won't go into it because we already did this on the podcast before, but you can find out, what is selling really well new in January, February, March, April, May, whatever it's month of the year, or what is selling really well used during this time of the year. And then you can kind of, guide your sourcing if you're trying to learn a new area to jump into. Right. And it's interesting. One of the hustles of the week that we're getting to here soon is something that I didn't think would sell, but maybe this is something that maybe some people can look into and go, hey, maybe it's something I want to learn. Right. All right. But before we get into a hustle of the week, we just need to talk about one thing that we've been consistently doing is showing up with our shiny domes.
Yeah. And again, man, we might need to get some powders on these domes because I'll tell you what, Skull Shaver gets you just one of the closest shaves, the most comfortable shaves. I don't have any nicks. I don't have any razor burn, and it's super fast, super easy, and actually enjoyable. It's one of those things that I use. I know I have a big beard, so it's hard to imagine that I shave my face. I shave, my neck and higher and all of that. So I use a double-edged razor, old school, and there's something about that process. It's kind of like comforting. It's kind of like a part of my morning ritual. And Skull Shaver has become part of that. It's actually an enjoyable process. It feels like I've mentioned before, and I'll say it again. It's like getting a head massage, and it's super effective. It's super reliable, and I'm still on the first charge. I think I'm going to recharge it just because I know batteries like to be higher charged than getting to the lower. But I'm still with just barely now under half charge, and I've been using this thing consistently. So it's super effective, and I love it.
So if you're looking to, pick up a Skull Shaver, very simple, go to skullshaver.com. Our promo code is PURE, P-U-R-E. Again, skullshaver.com, promo code PURE.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, if you haven't been following us on social media, we are Pure Hustle Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We're also Pure Hustle Cast on Twitter. Look out for our tweets now that we've actually started doing. And if you haven't had a chance yet, oh, by the way, thank you to all the Facebook peeps out there. Facebook is the one that I always go back to. It's just tough, but we appreciate all of you. And what's kind of funny was there was a hustle of the week that I saw on Instagram, and I'm like, wait a second, this looks exactly like the hustle of the week of this guy on Twitter. Oh, are they copying? Oh no, it was the same person, just different platform. So what I mean by that is some of you have joked around like the only reason we're on Instagram is because of you guys. Like we don't like Instagram, but we know that you guys follow us. You track things more on Instagram, and that is true. So. Not saying you have to open an Instagram, but the easiest way to track what we're doing is on Instagram. That's probably, I would say, our primary platform. It's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and then Facebook. So that's kind of the way it goes. If you're listening to us on the podcast and you want to check out any videos that we have, we are Pure Hustle Podcast on YouTube. Make sure to hit that subscribe and notification. If you ever want to give us a call, 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. Or shoot us an email at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. That's purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. As always, want to say thank you to everyone during Q4 who purchased shirts for a friend or, someone that wasn't a friend that you needed to gift them something and you thought, hey, why not a Pure Hustle Podcast shirt? I don't even know how that came up. And especially, those of you that took the time to also write us a review on Pure Hustle Podcast on iTunes, which helps us out a lot. And I want to see what number we're at. That's what I'm trying to pull up.
Those reviews mean the world to us. Not only do they help us in the algorithm, but it keeps us motivated. It keeps us going strong and wanting to make more content.
And I know we've been super busy, and the last one we got was on December 5th. So it's been a minute.
Mm.
So and we already read that one. So that's how long it's been.
Yeah. So we could use some more reviews.
Yeah. And as always, if we have brought you monetary value in any way and you want to pay it back, you can always do that by signing up for a membership to Pure Hustle Podcast on buymeacoffee.com/pure hustle. That's buymeacoffee.com/pure hustle for less than the cost of a coffee a month for 8 episodes. And not that we won't, keep providing these podcast episodes, but we want to be able to do more. And so for $5 a month, you can sponsor us, sign up for that membership, and definitely help us out at buymeacoffee.com/pure hustle. Speaking of hustle, it is time.
Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week.
Got some good ones.
That's right. All right. So our first one comes from Nathan. His IG handle is at NateBlack22. So he took his wife to an estate sale for the first time 2 weekends ago. She purchased a bag. So like a purse type bag for $15. And it was almost brand new with the packing paper in the pockets. That's
I love
good.
it when you find the packing paper in there.
Did some research and found that there is a huge following of collectors for these bags, especially ones from the original Connecticut location with the older logo. So the retail of this bag sold for $1,595. They listed it for $750 and they were offered $600. They almost countered, but that's a tough one, right? Like when you got a sale like that,
you got to make it happen.
So they decided not to counter, so they sold it for the $600 on eBay, and it was a vintage Gurkha Trekker number 32 canvas leather shoulder bag for $600. So from a $15 purchase, $600, you're not even feeling bad of, hey, maybe I could have got $750 later, because $600 off 15, that is a hustle of the week. Great job. And if this is the first time you've taken your wife to an estate sale, I have a feeling she's going to want to go more often.
Yeah. I mean, and they said they were just starting reselling. So that's a great way to start. So Nathan, thank you for sharing that with us. Now, I also want to say thank you because that is a brand I've never heard of. See, it's spelled Ghurka. And I was looking it up and I'm like, yeah, all the prices are good on this stuff. Even when that's just on what's selling. When I go to the sold comps on eBay, I'm just blown away. Like I've never heard of this brand. And that's why I love the hustle of the week, because they're just basically bolos, but bolos that end up ending well. So a lot of good stuff. If you can find these, definitely take a look up the difference between the older logo and the newer logo. But these are bags that I would have just passed up. I wouldn't have looked at them at all. Yep. Right. So, to me, it's going to be like a grill. Like I've never found the Tumi bag. Tumi. Have you ever found a Tumi bag? Mm-mm. Man, those are money. Never found one. So thanks so much, Nathan, for sharing. All right. Actually, and his IG tag is NateBlack22 on Instagram. All right. Next hustle of the week comes from Nakia. I hope I said that right. Or Nakia. I think it's Nakia. Nakia IG handle Oak Ninja Thrifts. That's a sweet name.
That is.
So purchased a bunch of china from an auction house along with other china they were unable to move. But here's the catch on this one. This is what cracks me up. So, I messaged and I said, hey, what made you come across this item? I'm kind of interested why you decided to pick this up. And so I'm looking and she said she just wanted the tote, but the china came in for inventory, so decided to sell the contents. Like what?
Nice.
So within this tote, this is what was found. Paid 9 cents.
Holy smoke. And
sold an antique Georgian Mason's patent ironstone china platter with gold leaf from approximately the era of 1850 to 1840.
Wow.
For $125 plus ship. Like what?
Hey man, that old stuff, if you get the right kind of stuff, it's money.
Okay, I need to correct. So I hope I said their name right, Nakia, on here. So please correct. I feel horrible right now. Like I feel like I should say their name. I don't know. I always DM and say, hey, I actually say their names twice and I say, tell me which pronunciation is right. And usually they tell me, but
just tell them to phonetically spell it for you.
Yeah. So they didn't tell me, but Nakia, thank you so much for sharing that. And the reason I wanted to share this hustle of the week. So this is antique stuff, right? Antique is usually 100 years old or older. And that market to me has not, I mean, I used to look that stuff up and there wasn't much value, but I don't know, maybe it's becoming valuable again, right?
Again,
You never know.
it's the right things, right? The right things have a following, and that's what you're looking for.
So Nakia Oak Ninja Thrifts, great job. Hope you put that toe to work and you got a lot of money made and you got definitely a new niche to learn. And, this encourages all of us to keep learning new niches. So thank you so much, Nakia Oak Ninja Thrifts, for that hustle.
Nice. Our next one comes from Jonathan, IG handle at HustleMain83. Usually sells clothing and bags, but noticed a Milton Bradley game he saw from a YouTube video. Nice. Board games, man. I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Picked it up a vintage electronic Mail Madness board game at the thrift for $5. It was all complete and had the electric component working. Sold for $279 plus shipping. Way to go. And it's always a little bit risky when it comes to board games that have electronics, because even ones that are new, sometimes the electronics don't work, because in the box, especially if it's ones that, try me type things, if there's batteries in them from the factory, those batteries can corrode and then you end up with all kinds of problems. But if you can get working electronics on vintage board games, they typically do pretty well.
And, the reason I wanted to share this is because Mall Madness was one of the first things I thrifted back in the day, because I watched the video too and I was like, that's cool. But I picked up one that wasn't working. But what I learned was that you can part out the board games, right? And so I actually I think I paid $10 for my Mall Madness, and I made over $100 in parts.
Nice.
Right? Because people needed certain tokens, or they needed the money, or they needed, certain parts. And so, yeah, don't just look at it, the surface value of hey, is the whole thing complete? Can you even sell certain parts of it for good money? So that's a sweet pickup, Jonathan. Thank you so much, Jonathan at HustleMain83 on Instagram. All right. What is your hustle of the week?
So my hustle of the week goes back to those RPG books that I had picked up a while back. I finally listed some of the other books that came with it. Primarily, I bought them for the BattleTech books, but I had lotted together other books that he had. So he had some Star Wars books, and I've been selling those consistently. But there's also an RPG series called Heavy Gear. And I basically got these books for free because the way I lotted them all together. But if I had to put a price on it, I probably paid $5, maybe $10 for these books. And it was several books along with scenario books and maps and all of these things with it. And I started taking pictures of these, and I was maybe 10% through, because there's quite a few of the books. And I'm like, man, some of these sell for money. Some of them are pretty low. It's a lot of listings, and they weren't as easy to list as the BattleTech ones were. So I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to take pictures of all of it together, and I'm going to kind of list out what's in here, and I'm going to lot it together as one lot. I had it up for, I think, $199, and got quite a few lowball offers on it, and finally had an offer for $150, and I'm like, done, I'll take it.
Take that.
So I probably could have held out and got $199 or maybe even more. And if I would have parted them out, I might have made more than the $150. I'm sure I probably would have, but it could have taken years and years and years, and I probably would have some stuff that never sold, and then I'd have to decide, do I take these listings down and throw them away because it's only one map or whatever. So it was just worth it to lot it together, which again, so our last tip was, don't be afraid to part things out. The other end of the spectrum is, don't be afraid to lot things together, right? Sometimes it's for the speed of it. You get the money a little bit faster, you get the inventory out. And so both methods can be effective depending on what you're selling.
Oh, that's great. I love, for example, I have a bunch of returns of Nerf guns. And so I'm just going to lot them up, and I'm hoping that somebody's going to have a mega Nerf battle and they're just going to buy them all. So stay tuned.
Or we can have a big Nerf battle here.
We could. But I have my own Nerf. So all my Nerf gun collection, not mine, my son's, is from thrifting and garage sales. And we got I got this one that holds 20, and it's an automatic. It's pretty sweet.
Nice.
So
have you seen, slightly off topic, but not really, but it's not really reselling related, but they're newer, I think. And the water beads that you can get, the magic water beads?
Yeah.
There's water bead guns, and they're fully automatic, and they have a little hopper on the top. And they just shoot those beads. So
kind of like paintballs, but they're water beads.
They're water beads, so they don't hurt and they don't go quite as fast and far. But they're super cheap because they're water beads, and you can buy a bag of 10,000 water beats for $5 or whatever.
Really?
And they're pretty sweet. So that might be an up and coming market. And it seems like a lot of them are coming from China, and they're the there's not like a main brand for them yet. But airsoft is really taken off, and it's hard. I don't think you can really sell airsoft and buy airsoft in California. There must be some law the same way you can, but you can't get them on Amazon. So it's one of those things where I knew when I was a high school teacher, a lot of the kids were getting into airsoft.
Oh yeah,
there was money
when
there.
I was teaching, it was huge.
So this may be an up and coming type of thing to be getting into if you're interested in maybe private label or having a booth somewhere or something like that. Because I can imagine a lot of kids getting into water bead fights.
I want to get into a water bead fight.
I got to show you the videos. They're pretty cool.
That sounds awesome. I mean, I love paintballing. I don't like the paint, but I love paintballing. That's right. There's COVID going on right now. There's a pandemic. Just thought let you know. Like, that's probably why I haven't done paintballing in a while. So.
Yeah, that's why. When was the last time you paintballed?
A year and a half ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not.
Do you have the gear? You've got a gun and everything?
No. I just go to the paintball and I rent it out. So yeah, I'm not that pro, but I love doing it. So yeah, no, I'm not. So I know I have friends that do that. You know what I'm saying? So I just borrow stuff from them. So all right, my bolo. So it's kind of interesting this Q4. I've learned that bigger toys sell well if they're discontinued, which I know that sounds obvious, but I was kind of shocked. So I had mentioned this where I went to off-price stores and I picked up a bunch of discontinued toys. And I actually found one of these at a Marshall's, which I was kind of shocked at. I didn't find it at any Marshall. I just found one at one Marshall's. Haven't seen it since. But I picked up a lot of these. And I don't mind sharing this now because, it's past Q4. I think this is like finding one of these is kind of if you find a pair of Doc Martens at a thrift store, right? It's not that easily accessible. So I picked up these huge Fisher Price Little People Animal Habitat Cherry Care and Safari toy. It's basically, the Little People toys. There's like 5 or 6 of them in this thing, and it's like this whole setup. It's kind of like the size of this table, as high as this table. Oh, you have one of these?
I have one for my son. Yeah, we got it like 3 or 4 Christmases ago.
Okay, yeah. So I picked these up for $17 at an off-price store, and then I found one at Marshall's for $50. I just picked it up because I'm like, these are selling.
I mean, that's a great deal because when we got ours for my son, it was, I think, like $80 or something new.
Yeah, no, I know it's a good deal, and I was selling them during Q4 in the very beginning. I sold. I think I shared this on the podcast. I sold them for about $120 each.
Nice.
Right. But then I looked on Amazon and I noticed they're going for $300. But the ranking was over 100K. So I'm like, I don't know if they're getting that 300, maybe it's taking forever. So as I began to sell them, I began to up the price. And then I found that there's always a sweet spot on eBay where I don't know what happens, but if you start selling things at a certain price, you begin to sell more of it. Right. I had this just happen with some puzzles that I bought where they weren't selling at all. I sold one day, I sold 2 the next day, I sold 3 the next, like they just started selling for whatever reason. And I think it's because people see that, sold already so many. This guy's a, respectable seller. And yeah, I sold a total of, I think 4 or 5 of these for over $100 a piece. And I sold this last one for $150 plus shipping.
Nice.
And man, I just picked these up on the hunch that, hey, these are larger items. You can't find them anywhere. I'm sure they can sell for good money. So this is a tip. When you're looking for toys for Q4, the way it looks has to appear as if it's worth that money. Right? So you're saying this, you paid $80 for this, right? Do you think it was worth $80?
My son loves Little People, so yeah. Unfortunately, it's outside at our house because it's just too big to be in our little trailer.
But the size of it kind of calls out like this should be $80.
Yeah, it's a big item.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to sell a little Pokemon toy for $80, unless it's collectible, it's kind of hard, right? Or a Little People bus with 5 characters,
exactly.
Like you're not gonna pay $80. But if it's a huge thing, you're gonna pay $80.
Yeah.
And one of my big money makers in Q4 was a larger item that people would be willing to pay up because they see the value and it's probably, they're like, hey, it's probably worth paying that much for this item. Right. So yeah. So those Fisher Price things, I actually have some other vintage toy items that I picked up during that time that haven't sold because I priced them pretty high. But yeah, I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow. And I have one more and I just needed to sell. So So if you're looking in the market for one and you're willing to pay up, I'm here for you.
That's right.
So, all right. So let's go to our last segment here. Taking the time to level up. And what I mean by this is now that you've gone through a whole year of 2020, right? And you recognize the opportunities and possibilities of reselling, right? Maybe you're brand new when the pandemic happened and now you've had a few sales under your belt, right? Or maybe you're like me. You've been reselling for a few years. You've been full time, but you haven't scaled. Like I've scaled, but I haven't scaled. Like I'm not anywhere close to where I want to be. But this year, I think, is the year I want to make it happen. And so it's time to look up how I can level up. Part of that is new equipment. Now, I wish we had talked about this before New Year's Eve, right? Because next year, I think this year, if I do buy a van, I think I'm going to buy it on December 31st, just so I can deduct it into my taxes, right? But it's definitely the time to just look into new equipment. If you haven't done already, you know, because you're trying to get that year-end deductions, because you're going to be using all this equipment throughout the whole year, right? And so you can be up and going by Q4 where you're not going, maybe I should have picked up a thermal printer. Maybe I should have picked up a different vehicle. Maybe I should have picked up these totes or this shelving. And right now, actually, for example, there's, I'll just say Costco is having a great deal on shelving right now, right? And so if you're looking for shelves, maybe now's the time, right? Are there any things I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there. Is there anything you're looking forward to? Maybe you need, I mean, you're talking about your shed. Yeah.
So we're doing the shed, obviously, at what that's going to look like. We're not 100% sure yet, but we're also considering, maybe I'm considering more than my wife is, but I think she needs it. So we're trying to save money. We're trying to be wise with and not spend on extra, but she has an old MacBook that's just, it takes so long to do anything on. Everything takes forever to load up. And I'm like, man, let's just buy like a $300 PC laptop that is like decked out on eBay. You can get some really good laptops for about $300, and it would probably be 3 or 4 times faster or more than what she's currently got, which would in the long run save time. Because right now it's just like I watch her sometimes load up the computer and it's like 10 minutes before she can actually get onto the eBay site, and I'm like, this is just not good. So yeah, like buying new computers.
The eBay servers are slow?
It might be.
I find that on most pages, it takes longer for eBay pages to load.
I wouldn't be surprised. Hopefully that just means that they're in the back end making things better. But yeah, so maybe new computer. We might need some new equipment for like, cause right now we have the way our inventory room is set up, we have a paper thing that we can pull down for taking pictures of clothing. That might not work the same way in our storage. So we might have to adjust how we do that. So we might need new equipment for that. But yeah, so everything we've invested in for our business has been very, very worth it. Thermal printers, the trailer that we bought, all of those things, photo light box, which you gave me as a present one year. So those things have been very beneficial. I think we're at a place now where we don't need lots of new fancy equipment unless we're really trying to scale, but little things like a new computer. And again, those are tax write-offs. So it is worth it.
Yeah. And so for me, it's I have goals. I may buy that van before Q4, right? I'm right now, I'm still struggling. Like if I had a van in Q1, would I use it? Like that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I don't go crazy until October. So do I want to buy a vehicle that's just gonna, I don't know.
That's why I need a trailer, man. You can get a trailer for if you're
true.
Smart about it. I mean, I got mine for $1,000, but anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000, and then you only have to use it when you need to use it. It's a lot cheaper than a van.
That is true.
But a van would be nice.
It was so nice, so nice. But it's time to consider what are some things to make your efficient business, your business more efficient, right? I held out for so long on a thermal printer, and I'm glad. And it doesn't have to be a Rollo. It could be a private label off-brand like mine, which works just fine. I'm kind of shocked. I only pay $75 for it, but it's a workhorse. Mm-hmm. Like it's been awesome. Or, just basic things. Take a look at, I've said this before, whether it help your inventory system, whether it helps your sourcing. Maybe on Amazon, you want to get a sleek new, maybe you get a tax refund, right? Or maybe you ended up with a stimulus check. Maybe instead of, just buying more stuff, maybe it's buying tools, maybe buying a scanner so you can, start selling books on Amazon or doing more retail arbitrage. Think about what is the new equipment that you can do now so that when we get to the place of, Q4 and when sales are really going, you already understand how it works. It's already fully functioning. It's an afterthought and you're good to go. The other thing is more storage, right? Which you've already talked about, but like I'm thinking about how to store things even better, right? Because right now my storage system, it's great when it comes to my shoes. Like all my shoes are in totes. It's well organized. It's great. My clothing, when it comes to my jackets, it's in different closets: closet 1, closet 2, closet 3, right? But I'm kind of considering like, maybe I want to get another storage unit, right? Maybe I want to move to a newer place. I do have a goal to move into a property. It's not looking so great right now. Inventory is kind of low. Rent's going up outside of the city. Like rent in cities are going down, but rents in the areas that we live haven't changed.
Don't rent, buy, man.
Yeah, I thought about buying. I could buy too. So I've thought about that, but the inventory is low right now, so the prices are up. So it's really hard to buy. But maybe not saying buy now, but think about hey, by this time we're gonna work this hard to make this amount of money, so we can buy maybe enough to buy a shed for our property or even buy a property. And that's kind of what I'm hoping by July I'll be somewhere else, but I might not be. Who knows? But it's definitely I'm taking the time to think about how I'm going to make that happen. And the last one about more help. Now, if you're a part-time seller, this may not be something. I mean, I think there could be good things that could be done. I mean, whenever you're able to get more help, you're able to do more. But if you're full-time, I truly believe like the reason I haven't scaled as much as I scaled as I think I needed to scale is just because I just haven't taken on more help. Right? I think that's the biggest obstacle. You got to think. No, never mind. Okay. Yes, the obstacle. Now, there's different ways of doing this, right? You could use tools like the ones we talk about in our ads. One of our great sponsors, Sellhound, or Sellhound will do all the listings for you. You just upload the pictures and they'll take care of it, right? You could also find virtual assistants, whether it be through different platforms that provide virtual assistants in other countries, right? Or you can find somebody nearby. Like right now, I have a great helper. So my goal is to have my helper, and I've talked about this in the previous podcast, is going to pretty much take care of 95% of, maybe 99% of any pictures that I take or any listings that I take care of. And I'm just going to source, right? So if I could source more, they can take more pictures, I can scale, and I can keep building and building and building and building. And so my hope is to really scale, really ramp up. I've talked about wanting to have 3,000 listings on eBay probably for the last 2 years. I don't know how long I've talked about that. And I just haven't got into it. And I hope by June, that is where I'm at.
Nice.
Right. But that's going to take, me hiring on somebody. And with Amazon, maybe Q4, I've considered hiring 2 people to do all the FBA shipments for me. Right. So I don't know, but now is the time to think about this as you reflect on 2020 and look into 2021.
Yeah. Make 2021 the best year of your life.
Yeah, agreed. So, hey, hopefully this helped you as you consider, hey, it's Q1. What can I do now? But there's a lot that can be done, right? There's a lot that can be done, whether it's organizing, learning, or just figuring out ways to level up. With that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.